So I've done my design and coding on a screen called PaintPot. So here's what we're going to do with Screen 1. We're going to have a button that runs the PaintPot app on that other screen for us. That gives us the opportunity to add an exit screen to give people a nice, elegant way to get out of the app, as well as a button that will take them to an About screen. Let's go ahead and delete everything on here. And I'll try and do this again. Alright, so we're starting off with the blank screen that you probably have, and I'm going to start off, let's see, save the empty screen. They want to make sure that you really did mean to wipe everything out there. Alright, so I'm going to take a vertical arrangement and drag it onto the screen. This vertical arrangement we can rename and just keep the word vertical. And this is going to be, I'll call it a menu, even though we only have one item on it. For this app, you can easily imagine having all your beginner apps in one, with 4 different screens for the different beginner apps. And then this would be a little menu. So I'm going to call it our vertical menu. Now the height is going to be 75%. I want to leave some room at the bottom for those other buttons. So this is going to use up 3/4 of the screen. However wide it is, we'll go ahead and fill the parent. Now inside of that vertical menu, I'm going to put a button. So I'm going to go back to User Interface and add a button inside of it. You'll see how it's indented there, and immediately rename this. And this is going to be the button for PaintPot. Now this button could be a lot prettier. Let's go ahead and just give it a color, and let's change the text here so it says what that button will do. Run PaintPot. Okay. And we're going to take that vertical menu and center everything. So no matter how big the screen is, this button will always be in the center. Another thing, because we might have this on a very large screen, that looks pretty silly. So let's go back to phone size, select this button, and let's just give it the height of 50%. No, height of maybe 10%. And then the width, we'll use, let's say, half of the screen that's available. So let's see what that looks like on a tablet size, on a monitor size. Now the text is pretty small there as well. So let's make it a nice bold font and increase the font size a little bit, just so it fills the button. Find a good size if you like. But I want it to be that big. Well, feel free to go back and say, let's give this 60% of the screen. Maybe a little more. So you have some options there as far as what you want it to look like. Now we're going to use the rest of the bottom part. So this time we're going to have buttons that are side by side. So I'm going to need a layout that is a horizontal arrangement. And this should be renamed. We don't need to use the word arrangement, but this is going to be horizontal. It's going to have navigation. So it's going to show us how to get around either to the About screen or exiting the app. So horizontal navigation here, we're going to have a width that fills the parent. And the height can also fill parent. It's just going to be whatever's left over. We know that's 25%. But if we decide that we want this to be smaller, this will now automatically fill in the rest. Okay? So in that horizontal navigation, we want that to have a button for the About screen. So let's go back to User Interface and put a button that says About. So that button, we want it to be over on the right-hand side. Of course, we're renaming that. So this button, we need it to be on the right-hand side, so it's the horizontal navigation that has to say, you know what, I want you over on the right. And then we could also maybe center it, whoops, not horizontal, on the right, and this in the center. So now we've got an About button on that side, and we need the other one on the left side. So how are we going to do that? Well, what we'll do is we're going to make another horizontal arrangement inside of it. That way you can have one that's over to the right and another one on the left. So let's get that horizontal arrangement inside of this one. You can see it right there. Let's rename it to horizontal. And this has to do specifically with the exit button. Looks like we're in pretty good shape there, I believe. Let's add a button. Go back to user interface and a button for exiting. So this button right here, button exit, we got a bit of a problem here. We want this arrangement to be on the left. So we're going to need to tell it to fill the rest of the screen. So this horizontal exit, we are going to say height, fill parent, and the width, fill parent, and it'll take up the rest of the space. Whatever About isn't using, and whatever's inside it will be on the left-hand side. So we've got the alignment already set to left. Let's go ahead and center that as well. And then we can play around with how big these buttons are, what their colors are. That text for button right here, we should also change that to exit. And that's the basics of the design of Screen1. Play around with the colors and the rounded corners, the font sizes, make it how you would like it to be. But getting things to be in the corners like that, this is the way that I've figured out. You may find a way of your own, but this one definitely works. That way you're using the space on the screen to good advantage. Let's take a look at the code next.